Well, good day. My name is Kim Moody, and I'm your host for In the Mood with Kim G.C. Moody podcast. And today I'm on the tail end of a long business trip. I'm in Guadalajara, Mexico, and I thought I'd just take a few minutes. This will be a short podcast, but and just talk to you about some of the things I've learned on my trip, and tell you a couple stories and some conclusions, and it's all around the theme of improved financial literacy. It's very obvious to me that our population in general needs to really improve its financial literacy, and I've written about that a number of times in the Financial Post, and I've been on this pulpit for years and years and years. But when I go around the country and outside of the country for that matter, and experience other countries, pros and cons. Like today I'm in Mexico, they're not a perfect country either, just like Canada is certainly not perfect, but it's a lot richer than Mexico, financially at least anyhow. But the way we're going, who knows, maybe we'll be on par with Mexico rather shortly. But it's just apparent to me that when I go around the country, like I said, and outside, that we as a country need to really improve our financial literacy. And the ultimate result of that is that there's going to be, if we do lift the overall knowledge, I think there's better and improved choices at the ballot box, which instead of always voting for here or here, which oftentimes doesn't result in logical or great choices. I think, and when I, for the people that are listening and not watching on the video, I just pointed to my heart and to my head. I think it's important to be, better informed. And of course that's subjective, but I think there's basic principles of financial literacy that we can all improve on. So let me just take a step back. Last week, today I'm recording this on January 28th in Guadalajara, Mexico. And last week I was in Kelowna, British Columbia, great city. It's had its rough times because of some political choices that were made, especially when it comes to, the tourism industry and the restrictions on Airbnbs. I mean, the tourism industry really took a hit on that, and combine that with the tax issues on short-term rentals, which I won't spend my time talking about that horrible piece of legislation. But I was speaking to a financial services industry conference, and on a variety of tax topics, mainly just the fact that we need to clean up our tax system. And the night before I spoke, I wanted to go grab a drink at the bar and bring it up to my room, and so I ordered my drink, and there's a couple barflies sitting at the bar, and one of them was young and rather opinionated and loud, and the other one was a little older guy, obviously a seasoned barfly, and you could tell he was a little more stoic and deep voice. And anyhow, the youngster, he started spouting off about tax, and my ears perked up. I thought, well, geez, talking about tax, right up my alley. And the youngster said, something along the lines of, I think the tax rate when income and wealth, or wealth, exceeds $50 million, the tax rate should be 100%. And I had to shake my head. I thought, what? And he kept going. He said, the average person can certainly live on $50 million. They'll never be able to spend it in their entire life. So I have no problem with the tax rate being 100%. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing, so I just kind of shook my head a little bit some more, and quickly the older stoic fellow jumped in and said, I agree with you, but I think it should be restricted to just capital gains. If your income or wealth is at $50 million, I think, and you have capital gains, I think the tax rate should be 100%. So I was left, as I often do whenever I hang around parties or networking functions, or when people have opinions on tax that are generally developed by their heart or by their or by illogic, so not good logic, is I have a choice to make. Do I jump in and start debating with them, or do I just walk away? And in many cases, I just walk away. And the reason why is because it's very difficult to debate ideological matters as opposed to logic and basic economic principles. And for me to put forward logic and basic economic education at a bar, it's likely that the conversation is going to slip dangerously quickly. So one might say, well, hold on, Kim. I mean, if you're so passionate about, improving the financial literacy of Canadians, why wouldn't you have done that? And the short answer to that is I pick my platforms, I pick my choices. It's not up to me to go and debate every barfly. And so, but I thought when I spoke the next day at that conference, I opened up the conference and I asked, was anybody sitting at the bar last night at such and such hotel? Because I want to make sure that, that the person that, I'm talking about wasn't at the bar. And thankfully, no hands went up, because I thought, if the hands did go up, and if these person, if that person or persons were indeed in the financial services industry, then maybe I have a debate with them, either publicly, quickly, or more appropriately, privately, after I finish my talk. And so I told the story of what I just told you, and it was interesting, the reaction, a lot of laughter, and as there should be, because the conversation was completely illogical. And anybody who thinks a tax rate of $100 million, 100% on any forms of income, whether it's 100 million or 50 million, or is, they need to take a basic economics course, because $50 million to a business person who has 300 employees, that income might be forced to be pushed to them. There's a lot of reasons why people might have $50 million of income. And so I think to deal with that, in such a shallow way is not appropriate. So, it really got me going. And for avid listeners and readers of my content, you'll know that my theme for 2025 is that I want to continue to plant acorns. And for those of you who know, acorns, they grow into the mighty oak tree. And the oak tree is one of the, it's one of the hardest woods around, and it can survive for hundreds and hundreds of years, and it can produce thousands of acorns. And in theory, those acorns can produce more and more in forests of oak trees, just from the one oak tree. And with that, and when the oak tree finally, when its life is finished, its wood can be used for hundreds of years more, for a variety of purposes: building houses, furniture, etc., tools. And so I love that simple analogy, and it's not like I've learned that analogy, yesterday. I've always loved that analogy. But in terms of planting acorns and growing those acorns into mighty oak trees, I think it's apropos for what needs to happen in terms of improved financial literacy, so that ultimately Canadians can ensure that their future will be bright. As a quick aside, as I sit here, Canadian Parliament is prorogued, and we have a lot of uncertainty with respect to proposed tax legislation like capital gains. And I've written about this in my Financial Post articles. I've talked about it in my last podcast, so I won't repeat myself. But, to prorogue Parliament so that the Liberal Party, can get their shit together, since, the Prime Minister has, half-heartedly resigned, I find that disgusting, distasteful, and pick all your negative adjectives, because that Canada needs strong leadership at this point in time. Given the uncertainty south of the border with, challenges to our sovereignty, challenges to our economic best interest with vis-a-vis threatened tariffs and etc. We need good leadership. And, the front runner, or the supposed front runner, Mark Carney, very bright guy, but very ideologically left. Today there's, newspaper reports that, should he be elected leader of the Liberal Party and thus appointed Prime Minister right after, that they would propose a huge COVID-style spending spree to try to protect, in air quotes, Canadians that are ultimately harmed. When I heard that, I thought, okay, here we go. This is politics in action again. Besides the poor economic results that would, deliver to Canadians and to our country as a whole, given the fact that our productivity is in the dumpster and at emergency levels, and our tax rates are too high, et cetera, et cetera. The last thing we need is excessive spending. But it's good politics, right? Because in my view, that is trying to set up a deal with the opposition NDP so as to preserve power for the Liberal Party until the fall of 2025. Why? I guess the politics would be that, hey, if they can spend, and try to prove to Canadians that, that they care about Canadians, that maybe their polling numbers increase and maybe they somehow get elected. That's the politics that it's at play here. And it's so obvious to me that, the average Canadian, in my view, should be rather disgusted with that. Because what we need right now is real leadership and real positive change, both economically and from a tax policy perspective. But, that's kind of the bad news. The good news is, on one of my stopping points, I flew from Kelowna to Toronto to attend a tax specialist group conference. Yes, there is such a thing. There's a number of tax conferences that are great. There's the Canadian Tax Foundation that holds, which I used to be a leader of back in 2012. I was the chair of the foundation, and they hold excellent conferences throughout the year. But there's a great tax practitioner, Michael Kadeski. He owns Kadeski Tax in Toronto. He's one of the partners. I know the other partners there as well, Peter Wiseman, Grace Chow, just great practitioners. And I met Michael Kadeski back in, I think it was 1999. And, we ended up brainstorming together and ended up starting this group of tax specialist firms across Canada, non-national firms, usually smaller firms with great practitioners. And we've held annual conferences, for the last roughly 25 years. And so this was the annual conference, and, roughly 50 people in attendance. And just to debate, for 2 days, solid, with a packed agenda, the nuances and policy of various tax issues, and then to the technical issues. It really warms my heart to show that, and to know that there is a solid group of people that really give a shit about Canada and its tax policies, and so it's that is so warm, refreshing to me to do that. And yes, it's not for the average person. The average person would fall asleep in a heartbeat, but to know that there's a dedicated group of practitioners and Canadians out there is very rewarding. And then to fly from there to here, to Guadalajara today, and I won't get into the business reasons why I'm here, but just suffice it to say that, the people that I'm meeting here, have Canadian interests as well, and those people have, they care about Canada. We care about the financial and economic future of Canada, and we can't, piss away our finances. We need to get our economy turned around, our budget in balance, and our tax policies in sync with our largest neighbor, and our tax policies in sync so as to provide workers the incentive to work hard. We need to reward people for risk-taking and working hard. And so, the overall solution here is we need to improve our financial literacy, And we also need tax reform. I've been beating the tax reform drum, like many good, solid tax practitioners and economists who care about Canada and its future. I've been beating that drum for a lot of years, certainly over a dozen, and it warms my heart that the Conservative Party, should they get elected, who knows if they will, but if they do, that tax reform is one of their platforms, and because it's very, very important that Canada undergo tax policy reform so as to bring back those staples that are needed. We need to reward Canadians, as I said, for working hard and taking risks. And so I'll conclude the this podcast with just where do we go from here? Well, I think on January 28th there's a lot of political stuff going on, both south of the border and in Canada. I mean, know what you can control, which you can't control. Trump this, Trump that, which I came across some people that canceled a trip, a vacation to Mexico the other day, and it's like, what? Why'd you do that? Trump. What? Sorry, help me understand that logic. There was no logic. They were glued to their 24-hour news channel, Trump this, Trump that, and they somehow thought that it was in their best interest to, cancel. That kind of stuff is not what I mean by keeping informed. Turn off the legacy news channels, and just know what you can control and what you can't control. And certainly what's happening south of the border, you can't control. The Canadians can't control. But you can certainly speak up about what's happening in Canada. Again, a lot of that you can't control. You can't control the who our new Prime Minister is going to be for the short term. But you can certainly speak up, and you can make your voice heard that we need better financial literacy, we need better economic policies, and better tax policies. And I think that's where I want to leave it today, is speak up, become informed. And with that, thank you for listening. Have a great day until next time. Bye now.